LIDE transforms. LIDE supported the approval of the National Policy on Solid Waste, a law that reformulates Brazilian basic sanitation. LIDE innovates. LIDE helped to create the Pacto pelo Esporte, an agreement between companies sponsoring Brazilian sports. LIDE educates. LIDE collaborates with the Ayrton Senna Institute in education projects that reach 1 million children every year. LIDE connects. LIDE promotes connection to leverage relationships, partnerships, and new business. LIDE conquers, moves, renews, accomplishes, makes the future. LIDE participates.
Boa tarde a
Good
todos.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our second meeting. Unfortunately, a virtual meeting on agribusiness, which is focused on two panels, one of them on animal protein and the second one on grains. This event is organized by the entities of LIDE in Brazil, especially in the states of Mato Grosso and Paraná, and in Europe, it's LIDE UK and LIDE Germany. Today's session is a continuation of our meeting that was held 2 days ago, the focus of which was on reforesting and biofuels. Today we will listen to specialists with have a huge experience, at the same as in the previous meeting 2 days ago, and we got a very positive feedback in relation to the meeting 2 days ago. Among the aspects that I would like to address today, such aspects are very important. One of them is sustainability and communication through of Brazil with the European markets. The European market still has huge growth opportunities for Brazil, but we have to work together so that this actually happens. I would like to enjoy these renowned specialists who will be the panelists. And I would now like to hand over the microphone to Breno Silva. He is the leader of LIDE UK. He will be followed by our friend Dr. Hildegard Stausberg. She's a journalist of the renowned German newspaper Die Welt, and she has enormous experience in everything related to the Latin American continent. This will be followed by Evandro dos Santos, who is the CEO of LIDE Mato Grosso, who will present, who will introduce the panel of members of the second panel discussion. And welcome again, and I hope you enjoy this event. Thank you very much, André, for your introduction. It's a pleasure to be part of the second day of the LIDE Brazil Agribusiness International meeting. The first day was very productive with lots of information on this very important industry for our country and for the world. Brazil is a leader of this market and can become an even stronger leader in terms of food safety. And it's a great pleasure to talk about animal protein on this panel, which is a very important issue for Brazil and the world. As we have time constraints to talk about many issues, I would like to make a brief introduction of our speakers, of our panel members. They are all experts in this sector, and they will share a lot of important information with us. So we have Grazielle Parenti, Global Director of Institutional Relations of BRF and Chairman of the Brazilian Association of the Food Industry. She's the first woman to have this position at the association. And so it's a great pleasure to have us here with you. Thank you very much for your participation. We have Caio Penido as well, president of the Mato Grossense Instituto da Carne. Mato Grosso State is a leader in cattle production in Brazil. He is also he is chairman of the work group of sustainable agriculture and member of the board of the Rocambo Group. Caio Pinheiro, thank you very much for joining us. It is a pleasure to have you here with us. And then our next panel member is Mr. Sergio Rocha, founder and CEO of AgroTools, considered the biggest agri-tech in Latin America and leader of digital solutions for the agribusiness sector. He helps and collaborates with many companies to face their challenges. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, Sergio. And it will be very interesting to see what AgroTools has done worldwide. And now I'd like to begin with a question to Grazielle. I would like to talk about habits and behaviors of consumers, and especially when we talk about animal protein, we have to think of the consumers. We have to deal with consumers who have their habits, whose habits are many, whose habits are changing. This is a very important change that is going on. And my question is, how do you see Brazilian producers adapting themselves to these new challenges, for example, of sustainability, animal well-being, which are part of this behavioral changes? How do you see this? Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate. Well, BRF is a traditional company. It has a history, strong brands, and has a strong commitment to sustainability. We are in the poultry and hog chain, and this is a balanced relationship because consumers are increasingly engaged and concerned about transparency and environmental sustainability issues. So this agenda is here to stay from the point of view of investors, but also from the point of view of consumers and other stakeholders. And in our chain, we talk about from the field to the table. We are concerned about managing natural resources such as energy and water, and also animal well-being is part of our agenda as well. The BRF Foods is a huge exporting company, and as such, we have a responsibility in this respect, and we are focused on this agenda from a social point of view. We have developed this collaboration with our partners, our suppliers, and so with the farmers, and also with our surrounding communities through our BRF Institute. All of these stakeholders are part of our dialogue, and Nobody's going to solve all these dilemmas or challenges alone. So we learn from others. We learn from people who are next to us. We have people who from and from others as well. So we also focus a lot on technological development, and sustainability is totally connected to uh, technology. And in terms of corporate governance, we we are focused on responsibility, on accountability and transparency. And we have just announced 22 public commitments that encompass our entire production chain. So we're talking about inputs, we're talking about uh, resource management. This is focused also on diversity and on animal well-being. In addition, we have our strong commitment. And last month, we created an area focused on all these issues, sustainability and so on. So now we have a vice president responsible for this section. Also, reputation. Uh, uh, to sustain our reputation, we have to be good storytellers to be able to tell people what we're doing and convey this message. Uh, and this is part of our business. We also have a very strong commitment with the companies to move forward in this respect so that we achieve the sustainability, environmental, and the governance objectives. All of this will drive us forward. And this is not only a strong commitment, but this is an opportunity for us to lead the entire chain which is behind us, not only agribusiness, but our consumers as well. But also, we see a challenge in relation to new regulations. So innovation will also need regulatory changes, and we are open to working with the government, with academia, and to deal with all these innovation with this new environment. So this will allow us to meet our challenges. Thank you, Grazielle. Could I ask you a question? What you said about dialogue and regulatory changes, I thought that was very interesting. And then you mentioned the technology that will help companies be transparent. So my question is, what do you and BRF Foods see as challenges and opportunities in this entire chain, which you have a huge and complex chain, we know that. So how can you implement all this transparency, carry on this dialogue, and achieve the end consumer? And so we have an acceleration platform of internal startups, which is called BRF Ramp. And within the startup, we deal with our biggest challenges. And obviously, we're totally connected to the commitments that we took on. So very commitments are focused, on such as issues as water, energy, animal well-being, and so on. So to this end, we see what is available internally, whatever is not available internally. We look for these outside. So because it will allow BRF Foods to be a leader in this agenda, not only as a Brazilian company, but as a global company as well. Excellent. This topic is extremely important. Still, in relation to this topic, Caio Pineda, I would like you to join this conversation. We have seen, Caio, the growth of concerns globally on sustainability and the environment and so on, everything that Grazielle mentioned. So these are the daily challenges faced by producers. And recently, the Instituto Mato Grossense da Carne Institute announced the launching of a platform that will help cattle ranchers. It's a very important platform that will include cattle ranchers. Caio, how do you see the movement amongst cattle ranchers? Is there really a sense of urgency? And is that sense of urgency as strong as it is among consumers? Thank you, Evandro, Breno. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I think we have to base on two global demands, which is the food safety in Asia, which is putting pressure on us to produce more food, and the crisis related to climate changes. This puts pressure on us to do everything in a sustainable manner uh, in order to, well, everything that we're doing has an impact on global temperatures. And Brazil is thoroughly prepared to face the two crises. Everything that is talked about, carbon, conservation, sustainability, increasing productivity. Everything for Brazil is a huge opportunity because other countries do not have means to produce any more than they do. In the United States has huge problems in this respect. So does Europe. We're promoting this sustainable intensification. The US and Europe are trying to de-intensify themselves. There's no biodiversity in the same way as there is in Brazil. So we have open areas that are degraded with low productivity. We have this opportunity to intensify the sustainability in these degraded areas, and we're improving the carbon balance, not only in especially in degraded soil when we promote the integration of different crops, and so we are sequestering carbon to a good end. And this scares the world. This is something that the world is afraid of. So we have to do our part, produce more. The government has to make this environmental regularization, has to make it feasible. We have to deconstruct these campaigns run by foundations and third sectors that have that defend interests of multinational companies that emit greenhouse gases, and so we have. So it's conserving the Amazon gives the European leaders much more visibility because they do the marketing on top of the conservation of the Amazon. And instead of promoting their own changes, they decide to focus on the Amazon. But our institute, when we promoted our meat abroad, we decided to see how can we separate the chaff from the wheat? How can our producers become regular? So we give support to the Secretary of the Environment. We support Embrapa, and we support all the institutions that are working to speed up this environmental regularization. We found a sound decision where producers were blocked. They are forbidden from supplying the main slaughterhouses, and these ones that are blocked, they're excluded from this market. But the cattle that is raised on these blocked farms are being slaughtered anyway. So how do we bring back this rancher back to the market? So our institute has a platform that brings this producer back, even those who were deforesting illegally. I know this illegal deforestation has to be dealt with. Illegal deforesting, those who did illegal deforesting within this insertion system through technology and partnerships, this producer will monitor that blocked area and will attest through monitoring, geomonitoring, and other technical tools will prove that that area is fenced in and is not being used to raise cattle. And based on this monitoring, he will or will not be able to go back to the market. And therefore, this producer will be brought back under legality. But we have to provide this to have more and more producers with the willingness to show that they are legal and that they can do their work. And this will allow us to produce more and more and destroy the negative image that Brazilian agribusiness has abroad. This is a great initiative, and I think it's directly linked to the use of technology. As you mentioned, Sergio Rocha is here with us, who is the owner of this company, this biggest agrotech. His solutions are used by the entire animal protein chain, especially as regards monitoring and environmental compliance. Sergio, I would like to include you in this conversation. What can you share with us in this technological evolution for Brazilian agribusiness, especially in regard to the meat chain, and what are the positive impacts that all of this has brought to the entire production chain, including these projects that focus on making everything regular and inserting these ranches out of the market and putting them back into the markets?
Hello, thank you for the introduction. First of all, I'd like to thank not only the invitation, but also to tell a little bit about the history of AgroTools, our company. When we look at the agribusiness and the role of agribusiness and the difficulty to make the necessary decisions in terms of complexity of weather and climate, biotechnology, finance, and territory. This dawned on us 15 years ago, and we should translate this through data and technology. Today, when I see this difficulty in a global way, our difficulty in the world with our consumer, so data and technology is the connector in terms of efficiency, in terms of the attributes of what the market is looking for, reinsertion of carbon in the product, differentiation of commodities, the weather and the climate, and in the technology with a country like ours with such a huge country, and also the beauty and the power of data is responsible for that. So what we have been living in the meat area, we saw this some years ago. AgroTools inserted itself and brought this modality in a territory that what comes from the territory becomes attributes in a large scale, in a big dynamics, without getting in the private market. Actually, this is occurring. How can you connect this with the technological product that is going to address and provide efficiency to the process? So today, what we're living today is that most of the companies are well protected. They are creating walls of protection, playing their role. But this is a blind point, which are some of them are doing great harm to the others, and these represent less than 10% of what is produced. They were abandoned because they didn't have the opportunity to understand it's important to produce in a sustainable way, or not being educated about this topic. They did not have the opportunity or were excluded, as Caio said before. The flag of the moment is re-inclusion, and re-inclusion is to bring back this small group that made harm to the country, to the image of the country. And Brazil is a global reference today in terms of sustainability, applied technology applied in large scale. The AgroTools play this role today in Australia, in Paraguay, in Argentina. We have been addressing demands and of people from many parts from the world. So they want to have technology at the service, having an attribute in the product. So we're managing this. The progress is good. Communication should be based on data technology to be much more assertive, taking into account the history of the past that was not well used. So now it's the moment of a mega opportunity. We have 10 million people now. We have to address to these people. It has to be sustainable without destroying the planet. We have many resources to those who produce in a correct way. Our company with a sustainable like an efficiency. We engage with the first company since the beginning, and today we can see that it's worth it. All this history, everything that we constructed will help our country as a producer to bring with all the adversities that we have, transforming what is adversity into innovation and creativity. Those who do not know adversity do not know, and so we are going to export with special attributes, whatever the client wants, carbon, transgenic soybean, beet, whatever, with the characteristics that could much address the marketplace. This is something that is occurring and helping the market not only to bring to the producer much more financial stability and better resources with better data and the insurance to in order to mitigate risk. So this revolution is occurring, and we're the lamp. We're at the beginning of the lamp, and this will provide a super impact. And the companies are providing this, so we have to now to see what is the specific point to go ahead. Thank you, Sergio. It's very gratifying to see that accepting the use of technology, the concern in the sustainable production chain is part of the day-to-day of the Brazilian farmers. Caio, just to go back to this conversation, based on what Sergio said before, how you're the chairman of an institution with many associates and producers. How do you see the adoption of technology as a means to differentiate and bringing the chain compliance? We talk about market reinsertion, but I'd like to know a little bit about the producers and the cattle raisers. How do they receive this? Well, actually, IMAC represents the slaughterhouses and the government of Mato Grosso. So to open the market and prove sustainability. In terms of landowners in the Mato Grosso, we have, well, what do producers want? They want to produce calmly. How should I regularize my farm? They depend on the government to create conditions to be regularized. So if it's Cerrado, they demand 35%. Sometimes they have 40%, but they cannot regularize their farms. So there is an anxiety because they cannot regularize it. The final should have a certification, a stamp that this farm is abiding by the rules. And IMAC, we have the task to provide this certification in the environment. This is an interest of the farmers, and what depends on them is the challenge they have from the gate in. So they have to intensify in a very quick manner. Though obviously this international pressure, now is the time to look at the farm as a business. Before it was an land investment speculation. We're going to buy this land because it's cheap. Now we have to be professional. It's like any kind of company. The farm is like anyone. So it's with the culture. Now it's to have to professionalize, to think about succession, having HR, and abiding by all the rules, and invest in technology, soil. We have many challenges from the gate in that, well, summarizes, if you abide by the labor and the technology rules and environmental rules, and to promote regional development, the surrounding area and the social area and the economic area. So the farm should be profitable. This is the motivation. We have to produce and prove the sustainability of the product and add value to this product. Another challenge that the producer have is they have to add value to the meat, certifying it and abiding it by the rules, and intensifying a better carbon balance. So to add this for this sustainable product, which is meat. And what we see in farms that is necessary for the planet, the sustainability of the planet, and all the human beings with all this pressure coming from Europe. And even if Europe was the colonizer that provided all these extractivist aspects and all these greenhouse effects. It's the same Europe now that we have a simplest campaign pressuring Brazil in terms of sustainability. Producer should make their parts and produce more. The government should promote the environmental regularization, and together, well, Europe cannot boycott Brazil and threats to have to foster in order to help Brazil to manage to have a feasible environmental rule. And it's the largest country of the world. And with the forest is not stagnant, static. How can Europe follow the data from the campaign that says that and with a very forest code that is very strict, instead of boycotting, they should support, not being hypocritical, but we have this that prove this conservation. We have a forest code that have to be implemented. So how can Europe help Brazil to implement this forest code? This is to reduce the legal deforesting, but we have to respect it. So if we have to reduce, we should pay for these environmental areas. So creating for the carbon market. So those who really want to help and really want to have to be a partner of Brazil should see the Brazil like that. It's a agro-environmental nation. We can supply by food, and Chinese, Asian are consuming much more animal food, and so we have to abide by the law, and so we should help Brazil so as to Brazil save the world and producing food. Thank you very much, Caio. Grazielle, from your standpoint, he told us some important thing, the question of the Asian market and also about the low emissions of carbon. I'd like to ask you a question in two parts. First, about the low carbon production, if you could tell us about the initiatives that BRF is leading and the Brazilian producers representing the Food Association have been using. And the second part would be about the Chinese market. But after the first part, I can ask you the question again. Okay, just repeating what Caio said, the meat production in Brazil is one of the most sustainable. The energy matrix with the renewable and all the measures that we have taken in order to reduce the impact in the chain and also the waste management, which is important to talk about this. We have been looking for many opportunities and technology. We're talking to the European public, IoT, how the European companies could address this challenge. I talk also about the BRF hub. This is one of the most innovative companies in Brazil that support not only in terms of agribusiness, but everywhere. So I'd like to address some points that Sergio and Caio talked about. Brazil is the barn of the world, and we understand it could be the supermarket of the world. We have a possibility not only to provide raw materials, commodities, and industrialized food that it has a great importance in our commercial balance, not only in terms of price and competitivity, but quality. We're talking about food safety. We're talking also about the sustainability aspects. Just to tell you, to give you an example, our participation without protein, animal protein, how can this get into a wide portfolio? We have many products exported to 140 countries in the world. How could we progress? We had many partnerships with other companies so as to learn. We believe in that, to be with the others, making partnerships We have some of them here in our panel today. And besides that, from the standpoint of controls and indexes, we're in the United Nations Global Index, protection, BB4. So we're looking outside, not only to the Brazilian legislation, as Caio said, that is one of the strictest in the world, but what the people are doing best abroad. And also for the forest, FSA, and we took part in Emergent Alliance, so an initiative in order to tell and to explain to investors and the emerging market what we're doing in terms of governance and environment, and to improve in investments. I'd like also to add, and talking about the importance to ally United technology. So Brazil has something very important with a competitive differential. We have the soil. We use 7 or 8% of our soil for agriculture purposes. We have a high productivity. We have business, energy. We have people that like and understand. We have also technology that has been developed by Embrapa and other companies. And today, within this scenario of digital transformation, which is much more accelerated. 2 points about the
I think this has everything to do with the resources that we have available. Could you give us some examples of initiatives that you are engaged in which are bringing this efficiency to the market? I'll give you 2 examples which have already been made public, but we're doing a lot of other things in this respect. We have recently announced a partnership with the Banco of Brazil, so that so all of this leading to a synergy in terms of photovoltaic energy. Yeah, very soon we'll have new things to say about this, new announcements to make in this respect. And then circular economy, one of our commitments that we announced recently is 100% of our packaging, whether they're recyclable or usable, will go back to the circular economy. So these are concrete actions which are linked not only to the objectives of our daily work, but also to the objectives established by the board of the company. So all of this is already happening within this. This is all in line with our objectives, which will be achieved. I will ask a follow-up question on Asia. I will ask this later on. I will now ask Dr. Stausberg to ask questions to our panel members. Dr. Hildegard, please, you have the mic.
Acho que está no mudo, doutora Hildegard. Deixa eu fazer um pouquinho, Hildegard, tá bom? Que eu fiz um pouco menos. É porque eu me perdi aqui com você e eu tive que... Ops.
Não conseguiu? Continua no mudo. Bom, enquanto vamos ver se ela consegue resolver a questão.
Well, let's see if she can address the problem of the microphone. So to go ahead about the Asian market, it would be interesting to have the opinion of Grazielle. We have been seeing the Brazilian protein, the great engine of this is China, and will always be an important partner of the Brazilian agribusiness. By far, it's one of the largest exporters. So many people could say that we are creating a certain dependence, that the risk to the sector. Do you have the same opinion? What is your opinion about that? And how do you think that we could have difficulties in diversifying our base of exporting? Well, China is, if I'm not mistaken, from the first trimester of 2019 as a country, one of the greatest destination. When we talk about halal segment, it's the largest one. But China has been growing, as you said, in purchase power and the construction of brand, which is something important for Chinese some consumers are interested about this. So the companies that are well positioned are growing. And another fact that is important to to tell you. It's not only for Brazil, but also for other great international players, and agribusiness is the largest consumer, China. So this is not a situation, Brazil is the largest consumer market and very internationalized. Brazil is also part of BRICS, and we have a very fluid conversation. I'm leading the agribusiness in the chapter at BRICS, and we can see the importance of a partnership, which is something at long term, and something that the pandemic showed in a very clear way, that food production in Brazil resilient. We without any supply in Brazil. So Brazilian count on Brazilian food, but all the world counts on Brazilian food. So China is a great player, the southeastern countries and Arab countries and the European countries. We can complement the portfolio of products, bringing our products, BRF, high quality products, very competitive and sustainable. So and we have been diversifying the agriculture ministry. It's important not only to open new market, which is something important, but also to open new categories. When in nature meat for a better aggregate product, we have a capacity of expansion and growth. We generate employment and conservation, revenue, income, and responsibility. Thank you, Breno. Dr. Hildegard, you have the floor. I just have a question to Gabriela. Finally, Europe, Brazil does not need the European market, correct? Well, I couldn't say that. What exists is a collaboration, a cooperation. We can see some categories where Brazil can offer more sustainable products. Our product that is exported through the maritime transportation with a lower carbon print. I think this is a good exchange. So how can we have to bring closer the European consumer so as to understand what we are doing, and also to have the feedback and know what kind of categories we can produce to complement. And we also import food from Europe as well in a very significant way. So Brazil is a big buyer of products from Europe. I have another question. Is it possible that COVID caused the acceptance of local products? Globalization in Europe is suffering from a lack of acceptance, and mainly with the European youth, with this green and dreaming. How can you see this topic? When I hear you saying that youth is greener and greener, they must know Brazil, which is a country that can produce greener and greener products in this carbon print. I believe that an important point is to listen to the consumers from all ages. It's interesting that you said about the green youth. Some companies are putting together some boards, not only with us that are beyond of the 40s, but with the Z generation to know what they are doing for us. We hear BRF have 86 years of existence. We want to stay 86 years more. So how do you do this? Is to understand today's consumers and the future, the consumers of the future. This is why we have this wide and open dialogue, informality, and feeding back all our strategies. You don't think that a campaign against modern farming, I just call it modern, the president of Mexico now prohibits the plantation of maize, of corn, transgenic, from 2024 on. So this is getting into Latin America, South America, this criticism to the modern and industrial agribusiness or in farming. Well, I cannot say anything about other countries, but I can tell you that in terms of Brazil, the companies and the association, I'm responsible for a class association. We have to tell these stories, tell what we do, and demystify things. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildegard. And now we are going towards the conclusion of our panel discussion. I would like to ask our panel members to share their final thoughts, taking into consideration sustainable production and how Brazil can differentiate or distinguish itself, which it already has, as we have heard recently, especially Sergio Rocha talking about technological initiatives, Grazielle as well, and so on. Brazil has differentiated itself from other countries. We are sustainable, but how can we show this to the world? The evolution of our production, our initiatives. Please, you could please share your thoughts with you in this respect. Let's start with Sergio Rocha, then Caio, and then Grazielle. Please. Thank you, Breno. I think an important point in all of this that was mentioned here, and it's becoming clear and clear. Technology is the basis of communication, but in smaller countries, in Switzerland, for example, it's a small country, which is different from Brazil. When you talk about continental-sized countries such as Brazil, nothing is as important because everything has to be attuned to the dimension of our reality. And so today we are at a moment where we are able to deal with mass data to show that sustainability is possible in a broader scale. And so how do we do this? We have to have some kind of receptiveness. People have to understand technology. The European world more and more. It would be very interesting to make this communication bridge, technology and sustainability so although this is possible to be implemented, and that's what companies are doing. The country has been doing this for more than 10 years, and now there are multiple agendas, multiple interests, and this has to be dealt with the private sector. What drove the international relationships, this was driven by agribusiness. A company like BRF is a Brazilian multinational company, and other companies do this as well. They look toward foreign countries, and each region has its own needs. And this is agribusiness is a capital-intensive industry, but there has to be access to capital. In the past, access to agribusiness capital was very expensive. Many banks refused to provide credit lines, but now this has changed. There are trillions of funds that are available for ESG. We have to do something simple. We have to deliver what the client wants and what the sector wants, and show that we have these exceptional qualities and unique qualities to meet the market as a whole. So I think there is no sustainability without technology. There is no way that this can exist. And where do we need the government actions in terms of the connectivity? The government has to help us with connectivity. So this connectivity makes the producer be more efficient. He can show his face in a better way, and he can get access to credit lines, show that he's sustainable. So connectivity is the role that we have to be begging for the government to do something about, implement 5G and so on, because this will lead to a great revolution. Our Brazil is already such a leader in agribusiness, but it will become even stronger once we have this more and more technology. In doing so, we will have a mega revolution. We have a global impact, and of course, we have to think of communication channels. We have to simplify things in terms of communication, show the world that we are doing everything properly, and we have to prevent our reality from being distorted by abroad, due to lack of information or to misleading information. And so this data has to be communicated, all this favorable data. So these are my thoughts in this respect. Thank you, Sergio. Caio, please, your comments. Well, those of you are interested to do research. One of the communication problems is many of us don't speak English. That is a basic problem. So I think we have a work group in our organization where many things have been translated. Our group has many stakeholders. We have 6 categories. So in addition to cattle ranches, amongst our members, we have global NGOs, slaughterhouses, banks, restaurants. So our membership is very diversified, the membership of our association. And in Imaki, we have a site, and there's a movement of producers from the Araguaia region, and there's 3 very interesting sites that can be accessed to have this, where this kind of information is available. Now, so it's communication issue, as you mentioned. So we have to learn how to speak English. You have to go to the forums. You have to go to the climate change, the COPPE. This role was taken on by many NGOs, especially the global ones, especially the 3 big ones that have led this process of conservation. I think NGOs have this role of bringing to the surface relevant issues, but now it's the time for the rural producers to take on this leading role in this discourse, because the view of these NGOs, imagine a negotiation, you ask 100 to get 60, right? That's how it works. So NGOs ask for everything. So campaigns and the media, when the media sees these campaigns that say that Brazil is a devastated land, as Andre Miller was saying, he said in Germany, the vision is the Amazon is going to be depleted in 2 years. The Amazon region, 63% of it is preserved. So Brazil has 63% of its Amazon region still preserved. Amazon is, of course, much more than that. The Amazon region is protected, is greatly protected. So we have to see who is running these campaigns. What are the motives behind these campaigns? On one side, these are environmentalists, have all the best intentions in the world. They want to save the world. But now we have to take on this leading role and say, yes, you raised the issue. Let's get organized. We don't have to lie to people to promote conservation. Let's tell the truth. Let's put Brazil as a major ally in this respect. Others demean Brazil or agribusiness. Our competitors do that. So France, Ireland, they battle for the domestic market with Brazil. So sometimes they do not have the conditions of producing more, but they end up by hurting Brazil's image because we have a competitive potential. So this is a very irresponsible attitude on the part of these countries, the US and Canada, but they fight over the Asian market with us. So all these associations of producers from North America also have an interest in demeaning the image of Brazil in the Asian market. And our Achilles heel is biodiversity, which should be exactly our commercial differential. So we have to explain this environmental complexity. We only have these problems because we still have biodiversity. Otherwise, we would not have any problems. So our difficulty is how to promote sustainable development, how to place Brazil amongst the global players. We want to be wealthy. We want to be a developed country. How to do so? Conserving part of its biodiversity. So to this end, we have to explain the forest code. What is illegal deforestation? What is legal deforestation? We have to show the good examples, explain the good practices, and find a new way, or find a strategy of conservation where we share with the rest of the world, especially with the developed countries, which are the major emission, the ones that emit most greenhouse gases. It's expensive to conserve biodiversity. So rural property in Brazil that tends to conserve 20 to 8%, depending on the biome. It's expensive. This is a cost to build a fence, to separate the forest from the pasture land. They have to hire a legal assistance. You have to have technicals, you have to geo-monitoring, you have to have be able to monitor your forests, otherwise they're invaded. So you have to pay taxes on this land that is reforested. You have to deal with fire hazards. So this environmental cost is enormous, and those who are taking on this environmental cost is the Brazilian rural producer and the Brazilian government. The government also has to monitor inaccessible areas. This is something very expensive. It's very expensive to preserve and protect this biodiversity. So the cost is on us, but the benefits of these forests is providing environmental services to the world. So this is where we have to have the strong communication, is to ask the world to share this environmental cost in the way of the market. So our new commodity is environmental services. I produce meat and I produce soybeans, but I also produce environmental services. But this is something that is not paid for. Once we are paid for this, and the Northern Hemisphere acknowledges that Brazil is a huge agro and environmental potential country. If the world stops being hypocritical and stops threatening to boycott us, if the developed countries stretch out their hands and help us, we will no longer be seen as deforesters, we will be seen as conservationists. And we will no longer have this complex of being the stray dog in the whole world. And Brazilians will be very proud of being the producer of food and of environmental services. This is a new, let's stop this hypocrisy. Look at Google and see if Brazil has more than 60% of its land preserved. So this is it. Thank you for the invitation. I think this topic is great, and I'm very enthusiastic about all of this. Thank you, Caio. I love your enthusiasm. It's great. We have a lot to do, of course, with this needs organization, and we as LIDE and all the units are more than willing to help in this organization. Grazielle, your final comments so that we can conclude this panel discussion. Caio is an example of the passionate farmer or rancher, and this is why Brazil has had so much success in what has been doing, because of all this passion. So I heard a local person saying, when you go to the forest, you might go away, but the forest will go away with you. So this is the message that not all Brazilians are familiar with these regions, and this should be mandatory for Brazilians to become familiar with all these fantastic regions that are preserved. Another issue that I would like to address is on communication that you all raised in terms of our industry. We have conducted communication not only in English, but also in Arabic and Mandarin, because these are our major markets. And in this way, we are able to convey our messages. So sometimes you have to repeat things for people to understand, but we will convey our message repeatedly to all these markets. And it's very important for this to happen. And as you said, it's in English and Arabic and Mandarin, whatever. And another thing is that we are, it seems that we're doing business deals, but we have to think not only of the business, but the people as well. People that work in agribusiness, people that produce food, people that transport food, people that protect the forest. So all these people are important. And our question is, how can we generate value by preservation? So the more we learn about this, the better we will be able to deal with all these issues. I would like to thank you once again for this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you, Grazielle. This was a great panel discussion. Thank you for your collaboration. A lot of opportunities out there for collaboration between Brazil and Europe, in my opinion. I really enjoyed some of the sentences that you said, on collaboration and research. You mentioned the issues related to people. I think agribusiness is a great factor of social economic transformation. We see this in our country, and people have to come closer to agribusiness. And I would like to invite European investors and companies to become more familiar with what we're doing here. Let's do more of this. We have a lot of topics to talk about, and I encourage collaboration in various aspects. We need collaboration. Without collaboration, we will not get anywhere. And having said this, I would like to conclude this panel. We overran our time, but this is such a great topic to discuss. And now I would like to hand the mic over to Mr. Hildegard to introduce the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Breno. And thank you, all of you, all the panel members, very pertinent. And after the next panel, we'll summarize. And I took some notes as well. So, Breno, just to take advantage of our time, I'd like to give the floor to Evandro, and so as to start the introduction of the next panel members, the panel number 4, and in order to address grains, I'd like to tell you that the last crop, Brazil, is #1 worldwide, about 137 million tons in terms of soybean production, and #2 in cotton worldwide. So these are impressive figures that Brazil succeeded in a short time without expanding the area a great deal, mainly in terms of productivity gains that occurred in the last 2 decades. It's really impressive. But the experts, the academia, will talk about this topic. So, Evandro, please, I give you the floor. André, thank you. Thank you to all the participants of the first panel this afternoon. I invite you to stay with us. My name is Evandro Cesar from Mato Grosso with Fabiana and Breno in the Germany unit of England. We're responsible for the 4th panel of our agribusiness LIDE, Brazil Agribusiness International meeting with with a great respect, the absence of Liga Garetti because of the Paraná, because she's ill and she's not with us unfortunately, but she is listening to us through Zoom, and we and always passing the good vibes to talk about grains, fibers, and oilseeds. Since we do not have a lot of time and we have many topics, the first question will be addressed to each one of the panel members, and they can start their presentation in the context of the market. So I ask to the people of the panel member to make a very summarized presentation, taking into account your brilliant CVs or resume. We'll give the floor to Dr. Hildegard Stausberg, the first journalist that was awarded. Thank you to the panel members. Michel Monteiro, Analyst of Development in Market Veterinary, Master by the University of London and UTP, and 12 years in OCEPAR, Cooperatives of Paraná in Strategy Projects for the State of Paraná Co-op. And André Emilio Sasser, beyond Association of Oil Association, Vegetal Oils since 2018, Isaac Ulspi, and a Master of Doctor of a PhD in Accountancy, Fea USP. He represents the main vegetable oils and promotes sustainability programs and statistics that are used in sectorial studies. Júlio César Busato, agronomist, Passo Fundo University in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, Agriculture of Bahia, Cotton, ABAPA, Development Program of Agribusiness, and Agribusiness of Cotton, was chairman of the committees of agriculture and cattle raising, and the Association of Cotton, renowned internationally. Edna Belisario, LIDE Germany. Edna is an entrepreneur from Brazil in the groom fleet. Please correct me. The first company in the world acting in packaging, food packaging, compostable. 100% of the packaging are biodegradable and sustainable. The first question, André Nasser, please start by introducing yourself. Mato Grosso, Paraná are responsible for over 50%, correct me if I'm mistaken, the capacity of processing of oils in Brazil, vegetable oils. How can we be more aggressive? And since we are champion in the export of commodities, so please, you have the floor to start. Hello, Evandro. Good afternoon to all the participants of our panel. I'd like to greet everyone. We are going to have a very interesting debate, and thank you for the invitation. Well, today, Brazil exports, in terms of soybean, 2/3 grains and 1/3, not exactly exporting, yes, and 1/3 with the internal market, which is processed. The main state in terms of soybean is, I'm not sure, is Mato Grosso. The second, I think it's Paraná. Soybean, once it is industrialized, it generates 80% of soybean bran and 20% in terms of oil. The oil today, 45% of this oil, 40%, let's say, for the consumption in supermarket or restaurants, in bottles, as we say. 55% of this oil goes through biodiesel, which is very important in terms of bioenergy. We mix 13% into the diesel, and about 5 or 10% is exported, because it's a huge international market for the oil. In terms of bran, I'm talking about 80%, half of what we produce is bran exported, and the other part to the internal market. And the main consumers are the meat companies, animal protein, represented here through Grazielle. BRF is a great consumer of the soybean bran, base of the protein for poultry and hogs, and for much more for dairy cattle. But the great Brazilian aspiration and the idea of Grazielle is fantastic. We're the barn of the world. We also can be the supermarket of the world. We have both the possibilities. We cannot be competitive in industrialized food or processed food if you're not competitive in terms of commodities. So you have to import this commodity from someone, and this commodity will be more expensive. So Brazil has a huge privilege to be the greatest producer of and having the vegetal which is available. American people have this, but they are not great exporters. They cannot grow as we can. So we took the place of the United States. We are in a stage where the Americans were in the 80s. They grew a great deal and they occupied all the land, and they have no place to, no room to grow. Argentina has many problems in terms of exports, and they cannot grow as Brazil. In terms of primary, it's Paraguay, but Paraguay is a small country compared to the size of Brazil. So without talking about the harvest and crops, Julio is going to address this topic. So what is the way to add value? Two things. First, we have to add more animal protein. When we export animal protein, we're exporting soybean bran, industrializing. Remember what I say, with only 1/3 of our processed soybean, 2/3 is exported. We have a great demand in terms of biodiesel. Now, it would be very important, and BPR, or the Association of Animal Protein, are conducting a fantastic study in order to grow in the animal protein markets. And something else, which is very important for us, is Brazil to sell soybean meal or a bran. This is an international market which is a little bit complicated. Argentina subsidized this kind of export, the export of the grain. So they export everything in terms of soybean bran. We have a border. 78% of what we sell goes to China, and in terms and soybean grain. So if we could do this, it's a long work and very political to start small, but it would be very important if Brazil could start selling soybean meal to China. It's a medium term, and in this case, we could industrialize soybean for goods. Just to answer your question, more animal protein in the international market, because we can have industrialization, biodiesel, biofuel, and these are renewable biodiesel, and we are going to crush more soybean and soybean meal to China. Excellent, excellent. We have all this summary that you presented. Fabiana, you have the floor. Now, the next question in terms of grain and cattle raising, I'd like to ask the question to Alexandre Monteiro. What is, if you can explain to us, what does cattle raising and plantation has an impact in terms of supply and demand in the international and Brazilian market? Alexandre, please, you have the floor. And tell us what you do as well. Good afternoon, everyone, all the panel members, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and to share this panel with all of you. It's difficult to speak after André, who made a summary with the 5 figures and many data. I'd like to say, in terms of adding value, and perhaps complement what André said, in terms of technology, it is important to invest in terms of technology. The integration of plantation and cattle raising has to do with the first point that André said, to incentive the animal protein and balance this with production of grains. And also with what was said in the first panel, sustainability, integration of cattle raising and plantation and crops. This is a methodology of production that adds a lot in all senses. First of all, because it makes the land feasible in a sustainable way, and also adding value in the different crops that use this system. So we have a crop plantation rotation and the cattle raising production. This is something that is very important to understand the first question addressed by Evandro. Adding value. So we have to develop more and more systems and potentialize the systems like those that are really going to ensure a supply and a demand that will strengthen us in the international arena in terms of competitiveness. So this is very important. Another important aspect is the traceability of our products. Now, talking a little bit about co-ops, it's an important system in the state of Paraná in southeastern Brazil. We're having participated with 60 to 70% of soybean, wheat, and maize. The co-ops have a very important role to play. And we are big producers of animal protein and fish, hogs in our production in our state. So what André said, and just to complement this circle, grains, animal protein must be have a feedback with self-strengthening. We're having strong chains of animal protein. This is a way to produce grains. This circle has a great deal to be potentialized, and we add value to grains. We're talking about oils and meals, and a big aggregation of value is to transform it into animal protein. The cattle raising and animal production includes milk as well, which has a prominent role in terms of feeding animals. This helps a great deal to add value in the grain chain. It is essential to close what I said to associate such perspectives with technology and production systems. Thus, we are going to maintain or keep the importance of Brazil, the state of Paraná, and the big players, state players in the agribusiness, adding value and supplying quality products. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexandre. Thank you for your answer. I'd like to make a comment. We were talking about grains, the system of supply and demand, and also the cattle raising, and correlating two markets, as well as the topic B2B and B2C. We're also talking not about all the interconnected systems, but also in terms of the circular economy. This has to do with this exchange and system connection in the agribusiness in your project. Now, just to take advantage of this, I'd like to, B2C, I'd like to introduce Edna Belisario from the Grünkruft, a German company, because she fits in one of the topics that you talked about, the products that they are sustainable in the B2C, B2B, and B2C markets in the produce. I'd like to give her the floor, and also to invite Dr. Stausberg to ask questions. We're very honored and very happy to have you with us. So please you can ask your questions, the public as well.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Evandro, for inviting me, and Fabiana. I am Edna Belizaro. I live in Germany. And since November 2017 is when we opened up our company, because in Europe, especially in Germany, everybody is talking about sustainability and plastic-free packaging. So we wanted to provide the best solution so that you deal with your packaging. So here in Germany, we developed a cellulose sheet, which comes from our own plantation. It's 100%, it can be composted at home, and it also can be composted in more modern sites, which is deals with this huge problem of compostable packages. We also have this sheet, which is a totally pure packaging. At this point, the cellulose packaging still comes from Europe, so eucalyptus and pine trees and other European biomas. We are now developing, which is the great revolution of the Grünft company. We started working with packaging when we saw something on German TV, and we see this whole migration of food packaging going to 100% compostable material, especially those that are petroleum free. Now, right now, we are developing we're in terms of producing the sheet based from sugarcane straw, as the sugarcane straw is a byproduct of sugarcane, and as this straw in Brazil is covered in Brazil, and this can cause fires, increases the number of insects. So it is a greenhouse gas effect, which emits methane gas, which is much worse than carbon dioxide. So we're moving towards packaging that is based on sugarcane straw, which provides a huge opportunity for producing carbon-free packaging. And this kind of packaging, plant-based packaging, whether it's eucalyptus or pine trees, which is where cellulose at the moment, we want to start developing bleach, 100% bleach, sugarcane straw, and also in the natural color. We have some examples. This is still the sheet in its natural color. So this is packaging that substitute paper packaging for any kind of food products. To produce 1 ton of this kind of paper, we only need 2.5 kilos of, she corrects herself, we need 2.5 tons of sugarcane straw, while in eucalyptus, I have the data here, for eucalyptus, the pulp and paper industry uses 14 tons to produce the same ton of paper. And so you can see the first positive characteristic of sugarcane straw, which is a byproduct, of sugarcane, which is much more important than bagasse. Production of eucalyptus. Eucalyptus lasts for 21 years, whereas sugarcane straw, you can get 21 harvests. So the economic advantages and the environmental and social advantages are enormous. In addition, the price of 1 ton of sugarcane straw is 59 to 60 reais, where the ton of eucalyptus or pine-based paper is $60, $70. So the price of sugarcane straw is much lower than that which comes from eucalyptus or pine. The production of sugarcane straw needs 37% less of energy capacity. And this is an agricultural revolution thanks to a product which is usually discarded or is left in the pastures, left fallow, which is something which can cause fires, and which also produces greenhouse gases. And you see that Brazil is really has this huge potential. So Brazil has the technology to provide to supply this new technology that you're working on. Yes, Brazil is the perfect country because we hold 40% of the sugarcane production, and to produce ethanol, bagasse is used more for ethanol, and it has been proven by a research study that proves that second generation ethanol, we have the best option with corn forage and was also with coconut fiber. These two raw materials are, sometimes I forget the Portuguese, these are much more beneficial in terms of economic and sustainable terms in the production of second generation ethanol. With corn forage, due to the quantity of ashes and due to the lower quality cellulose, which leads to higher combustion, all of this can be substituted by sugarcane straw. Sugarcane straw is seen as garbage. So we can make packaging which could even substitute plastic. So this is what we're trying to do. See, this packaging that I just showed is also based on sugarcane straw. And so this is 100% appropriate for any kind of food product, such as meat. This packaging can be dissolved. And so our technology is working on producing 100% sustainable packaging, and which can also be used for fresh products such as cheese and meat and so on. Thank you very much. So this is an example of technology in the agribusiness sector. And still going back to technology, I would like to hand the mic to Júlio César, who, as all of you know, his wonderful curriculum. He comes from the cotton sector, and he will tell us what are the technologies being used in Brazil and how all of this is seen in the foreign and domestic markets. So please, Júlio César, you have the mic. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. Evandro just forgot something about my curriculum. I'm also a farmer, but I would like to say something about the story of cotton so that we understand what is happening at the moment in this respect. Brazil lost two enormous opportunities in terms of cotton. First, in 1750 in the state of Maranhão, and the government at the time levied huge taxes on the production of cotton. And this, of course, this was very detrimental. And perhaps if that had not happened in the 18th century, we could have gone through a huge industrial revolution. And the second was in the 60s, when Brazil came back as a major cotton producer, 4.2 million hectares devoted to cotton, basically based on family agriculture, so family farms, especially in the Brazilian Northeast. And then unfortunately, the cotton crops at that time were devastated by pests. In 1975, Brazil became the second biggest importer of cotton because of this plague, this pest. In the same period, cotton crops became more prominent in the state of Mato Grosso, so in the Brazilian Cerrado region. And this is still family-based agriculture, except cotton is now is cultivated in a much more integrated manner. So we have to be careful not to lose this third opportunity. But so far, everything is going well. So I think one word that defines union of the cotton farmers, union with state associations, everything coordinated by Embrapa, and the partnerships that were set up in the course of time between farmers, with Embrapa, with public entities, with input suppliers and so on. And as a result, we created a new technology which we improve every year. And this technology is based on climate conditions and soil conditions. And all of this allowed us today to be the highest productivity in terms of non-irrigated crops. We are leaders the global leaders in this respect. Today, Brazil produces cotton in enormous quantities, so 3 million tons of cotton. So we're fourth biggest global producer of cotton and the second biggest global exporter of cotton. So we have quality as attested to by the analysis to test the quality of our cotton. So we're doing very well in terms of resistance and so on. So we work with 10 laboratories that are spread amongst the cotton farmers, and these laboratories are supervised by the Embrapa laboratory base in Brasilia, which checks all the information that these trade associations provide. About the traceability, we have an Embrapa system in this respect that has been around for 17 years only. So for 17 years, we already know where each grain of Brazilian cotton has been produced. We can trace all this. Our cotton is 100% sustainable, and most of the cotton farmers are members of ABRAP. And I think the biggest achievement that happened, which happened 9 years ago, was in relation to sustainability with the creation of responsible Brazilian cotton. And this is a program that there's a stamp which attests to the sustainability of Brazilian cotton. This cotton is audited, and the farmers have to comply with 78 items related to social issues, occupational safety, and environment. And then they get the seal of approval. For example, we have a partnership with DCI. And what is the difference between ABR and DCI is basically we have all the Brazilian laws in this respect are included in ABR, and we also count on our Brazilian Forest Code. And 68% of the Brazilian cotton, 78% of the Brazilian cotton has this seal attesting to this so-called responsible cotton. I think so. The Brazilian agriculture, I was looking at the numbers the other day, especially the cotton farmers, Brazilian cotton farmers, are the ones who use biological control of pests and diseases, and they use organic products to do so, more than anybody else in the world. So there's a huge difference in this respect between Brazilian farmers and other farmers from around the world. So, and to conclude, I would like to say that nowadays, after what Andrea said, 65% of Brazilian cotton, that is nearly 1 million of hectares where cotton is grown, but 1 million hectares is So in other words, what I'm trying to say, in 1 million hectares, the farmers plant soybeans, and then after they harvest the soybeans, they plant cotton without irrigation. So this is absolutely incredible. I have never seen anything similar in the rest of the world. So it shows the optimum use of soil. And this is what we have to spread. This is kind of information that we have to spread. 8% of our territory is used for grain. We already allocated half of Brazil is allocated for preservation. A huge percentage in the Amazon region, 35% in the Cerrado and in other regions, and a good part of the Mata Atlântica rainforest. So half of Brazil was allocated by us Brazilians for preservation. And another information, most of the Brazilian cotton is uses specific planting techniques, and this technology increases the organic material in the soil, and various studies have shown us that our agriculture, it sequesters or it maintains more CO2 in the soil and releases less CO2 than American or European agriculture. So I think we have many positive factors that have to be better communicated and better conveyed. Thank you. Dr. Hildegard, would you like to ask any questions to the panelists of such a high level? Thank you. First of all, so much information, very special, very unique information, and totally guided on environmental aspects. And I repeat what I have said in all sessions. And everything that I heard today and 2 days ago, you have to explain things. You have to explain well and permanently. There's no other way. And this is if we believe in, if you said 20 years ago that there was no cotton in Brazil, and now you're such a high position in terms of cotton production at all levels. In Germany, we have the saying, you do something good, so you have to talk about it. This is a popular saying in Germany. I don't know how we say this in Portuguese. Yes, exactly. Do it well and talk about it. This is should be the slogan in all the conferences of this kind. Now, in terms of what Brazil is doing in terms of cotton, there is cooperation with 2 or 3 big other producers. Is that the case? Mr. Julio, the question is to you.
Eu não entendi a pergunta. A cooperação, se tem cooperação com mais pessoas, é isso? Estão me ouvindo?
Ô, Júlio, ela perguntou se o teu programa...
She asked if your program has cooperation with other countries. With other countries, okay. No. Actually, we are doing this kind of work only with the Brazilian government.
Existe expectativas de expandir?
Well, the expectancy to expand this, to intend to expand. Well, actually, we have 2 different programs for cotton. One in Brazil. This is the T-shirt I'm wearing. I'm from the cotton. So as to people better know what are the advantages to wear a cotton garment, because it's a biodegradable fiber. Edna spoke a little bit about packaging, but a big problem that we have today is microfibers. When you wash it, there are microfibers that go to waters and contaminating fish, and this comes back to us. This is a big problem, but it seems that no one is giving much importance as they should. So, what are the advantages of using cotton-made garments comparing to a microfiber? First of all, cotton, well, we're talking about families that employ families so as to produce a natural fiber. There is a sustainability with the programs that we have, the Brazilian and responsible cotton, social pillar, economic pillar, as well as the ecological pillar. Now, we are doing this with the BR seal, associations with other, so as to send it to supermarkets or to stores with the QR code. You can just read it and you say that was produced in the Mato Grosso farm. This is the name. This was certified and checked till everyone would have control in terms of quality and sustainability. And abroad, today, we have a project that was conducted with APEC, the Ministry of Agriculture, which is called Cotton Brazil. And through it, we're to the industries to give them the message of the Brazilian cotton. How do we produce our cotton? Who we are, what do we think, and what we did. And so we have some videos, then we talk, and then we answer to questions. This with the support of our ambassadors in 9 countries for us, so as to win markets and to give more value to the Brazilian product, and to show people that we're not putting fires in forests and expulsing Indians so as to produce cotton. Not at all. This is something completely different. If I think I spoke too much. Well, I'd like to add something that Mr. Busato said. So in terms of the ecological fiber, when you wash, there is nanoparticles that are released for oil and plastic, and this goes to the rivers and seas, and the big problem. We said that cellulose is the future of synthetic fibers. Viscose, for instance, comes from cellulose, which also comes from the straw, the sugarcane straw. Our technology encompasses also these fibers because the process is not too different. It's the same as the cellulose from trees, as we have in Brazil. So the future of synthetic fibers are well known as cellulose, included from a Colombian producer of a pineapple. You can make we have all the possibility of getting into this market because we have a great lot of organic produces in order to produce these synthetic fibers, which is not a problem to be produced with the cellulose of sugarcane straw. This is, well, I'd like to add something. I was talking about you're replacing plastic packaging by biodegradable packaging. So I made a comparison of the synthetic fibers that are used in garments with a natural fiber, which is cotton. Yes, I understood. I was going to add, but the synthetic fibers is a problem for the future as well. And polyester, for instance. Fabiana, allow me, please. Andre, I'm hearing and you too. I want you to say something. I'd like to give you the floor so as you can enlighten us in the prospect of the international market, technology that is in the product of Edna. So please tell us something. Well, something that is important to say, this work that has been conducted by Julio and Abrapa it's incredible. And cotton has no problem of sustainability outside of Brazil because of this study that was conducted. It's a provoking, Julio. The cotton producer is a soybean producer as well. We do not have this in other crops. We suffer a great deal because of sustainability. We do not have a program of certification as Julio has in terms of cotton. So we really need the producer to organize themselves. We have initiatives, the ProSoja of Mato Grosso, in partnership with us at MIOV. ProSoja Mato Grosso is the Soja Plus program in the state of Mato Grosso, and MIOV is a kind of angel investor, let's say, of Soja Plus in many other states. We have 5 other states that we have been giving strength to it, and we are not in the same level of the cotton project. And Julio also grows soybean. So we really should think how to provide scale to a program like the cotton one, because what is occurring in Europe, as you saw, and the United Kingdom has a due diligence system in order to see the illegality in prisons. So we have to we have to do the due diligence. Who is going to do this? Is intermediate people, those in the middle of the chain, those who buy the product, or the industry, and they process and export, and they're trading. If Julio sells cotton to the United Kingdom, there are no problem doing due diligence because everything is structured there, everything is traced. However, there's no, we cannot do this for the whole chain. We should have a system that is led by the producers, and those who buy from the producers ensures the traceability. So we have costs will drop. In Europe, for instance, to identify the embedded deforestation that is included in the products. In terms of cotton, this problem does not exist because everything is traced. In terms of soybean, we're going to have a great effort in order to meet the European rules. Obviously, we have to meet them. So we're a big country. We have soybean of all kinds, transgenic, not transgenic, with preserved identity or without any traceability. So we can do this, but this is not the ideal. The ideal is not to be in the hands of those who process. Should be led by the producers, because all the price of this will be, he will be awarded everything, the value adding. If the producer takes this and it will come back to his price. So this is a teasing aspect. I'm provoking here. We have sustainability aspects. If a Brazilian producer organize themselves we'll have the better Brazilian product. Our soybean has been awarded already in terms of oils and other things. But so you can imagine what we have in terms of cotton and maize and what the cotton does. So it's a revolution in Brazil. And cotton, as Julio can tell us, I don't know how many producers, perhaps 2,000 or 3,000 in Brazil. If we do this for 100,000 producers, that are scattered about a lot of hectares, you can imagine the development for the Brazilian markets. So they have to learn with what Julio said. As traders, we're going to help. I'm sure that the companies like the animal protein will want to help because this is good for everyone. You touch a very important aspect, certification, due diligence. I'd like to explore a little bit more this matter, if you allow me, because there is another comment that all the producer of soybean are from cotton and crops and so on. So two parts of the question. Could you take advantage of what is already done for cotton, for soybean and corn, since they are the main producer, the same place? Can we use this in terms of collaboration? And number two, if there are some initiatives that are led by BIOV in terms of building this kind of follow-up and traceability? Well, actually, I'm sure that the cotton experience should be taken, the cotton and the soybean should take advantage of this. It's not the same thing. The scale is not the same. The number of cotton producers is lower compared to soybean producers. Cotton, we can have traceability by crates, and we do not have this in terms of soybean, because the soybean comes from railway transportation, and it goes down it drops from the wagon and differently from a truck. So some adaptation should be done. But we have technology for this. But the most important thing, actually, is to have this producer vision. So they should know that they have to put together a certification process. Julio mentioned the global certification in terms of cotton, but this is the Brazilian one. And today, they are much more important. So this is the same thing that we have to perform here. We have some certification models, but they are not good for certification. This is a market niche because we do not have the ownership of the producer. When the producers say, this is good for me, everything will change. And so we have initiatives. What occurs today, the traceability today is a tendency, is a trend. We cannot trace. So in terms of deforestation, we're avoiding the traceability farm by farm. We prefer to work deforestation in terms of the sectorial aspect. You see all the sector where there is deforestation, and then you inform the company. The companies decide if they are going to buy the soybean from that place or not. It's in a municipal aspect. The challenge is huge, but despite that, all the industry of soybean have the origin control, all the properties with the geographical coordinates in the system for all the risk and the social aspect. This is a rule. You must check all the farms from where you're buying. If we had a system where the producers say, my soybean is number 1, 2, or 3, we could very easily put together a supply chain production separating such levels of soybean. we can do this, included to the harbor. We didn't do it because we need to have a kind of checking in the farms, and the trading cannot check farm by farm. We just assess if the land has problems, but the good production practices, this has to be done by the farms, and we adopt level 1, 2, and 3 rules. And we have Soybean Plus, which is a program of training. It is not a program that is accredited in terms of certification or systems of certifications of other countries. We couldn't reach this stage that Julio attained. What do you think that it lacks for producers to organize themselves in this way? Perhaps because we have record crops, high demands, and the producer are not looking to this kind of things. What is, in your opinion, the problem? It's a kind of maturing of the soybean system. So traceability has a big importance. The proving that the soybean has nothing to do with the deforesting has a, so consumers are making pressure to, and they say that what is going to happen. So it's just a question, a matter of time, what we're doing to alerting the producer to start this immediately, because afterwards it's going to be very difficult to start. We're going to separate. Well, there are some producers that went well and the other ones will not be explored. This is very, very bad. Caio said that, said about the blocked one. We have to bring them back. So no trading that wants to segregate a product. We want all of them, but so there is a perception of producer that is lacking about what is occurring in the marketplace. Sorry for the criticism, but we have to open our minds. And we're here for that, not only for saying things good, but we have to improve and using this platform. The awareness, we know that this kind of thing is necessary since the soybean moratorium that prohibits this kind of practice. So I agree with you, but our role is really to show the challenges and also to help. Rene, can you allow me? And you talked about ProSoja. ProSoja is a partner of the LIDE initiative and the provocation. Where is the producer in this panel? We divided the panels by industrial areas, and the next step is to create a panels for production. So we're going to go inside the gates of the farms and to discuss, to debate this topic and this need, as well as many others. Julio, I provoked you, put you as producer, but as a producer, you really wear the shirt of the producer. If you want to say something, Isabella.
Well, it was not Julio or Abrapa. This is 20 years of work and other cotton farmers that came before us who improved this process, where I see problems, which is also related to the planting of soybeans and corn. So I think, first of all, cotton corresponds to 1.6 million hectares, whereas soybeans is 38 million hectares. So the soybean program is a huge program. There are, you see this all over. However, I think that there are two factors that carry a lot of weight. First one is the size and the number of farmers. The number of farmers is enormous. The second factor, the farmer asks himself, okay, fine, this has a cost, yes. Okay, this has a cost. The American farmer, the second biggest producer of soybean in the world, thinks in this way? No. What about the Argentine farmer? No, he doesn't think this way either. What about the one from Paraguay and so on? So why do I have to have an account? And who's going to, well, why do I have so many bills? And who's going to help me pay these bills? So this is a question that has to be in the back of our minds. And I think that the farmers have this business of legal deforesting and so on. This is, I mean, it's out there. I don't know any farmer that is deforesting. I really don't. Well, maybe in the Amazon region, maybe. But wait a minute, the Amazon region has 86% of the areas preserved in the Amazon region. And the Brazilian Forest Code establishes that 80% has to remain as protected area. Are we going to be able to do this? I hope so. And why? And why is this difficult to be achieved? 80% of the Amazon region has to be protected because it's a huge area. You know, when we think of the numbers entailed, what percentage of Brazilian soy comes from the Amazon region, you know? And it seems that the image that is conveyed abroad is that everything is produced in the Amazon region. And that's why farmers are devastating the Amazon. This is totally misleading. So we have to convey the correct information. What does Brazil need? It has to organize itself better, and it needs support to make sure that illegal deforestation does not happen. Because in spite of it, if we do away with illegal deforestation, 80% of the Amazon region will be preserved. And this kind of message has to be conveyed, especially to Europe. And there are two biases as well. You have the economic aspect, bias which is very strong, because we have to protect the farmers, the American farmers and European farmers. They have to be protected. And they have the political aspect as well. And so you have to be very careful in how you convey this message. We have to conduct a conversation which is at a different level. And because the accusations are difficult to be proved. I'm sorry for interrupting, but this is the issue exactly. We often mention communication and this preservation of 86% of the Amazon region. In Europe, nobody knows about this, or they know about this, but this is not communicated. It's not made public. One of the numbers, so there's a lack of this real communication, positive communication, constructive communication to talk about this fact. But I'm just referring to the Amazon, or burning, fires, or deforesting happens in Indonesia, happens in Australia. But this is a news that is 1 or 2 days old. And then but in the case of Brazil, it's articles of the news of this kind appear constantly. So we're doing something wrong. Something is not being done properly in Brazil. And we say it's my fault or your fault or whatever. But Indonesia, nobody talks about Indonesia. Everything happens in Indonesia, which has even more severe deforesting. But then after 1 or 2 days, there are no more news about this. It's Australia, the same thing. Last year we saw there was a catastrophe in Australia because of those huge fires that happened there. But you know, these news on the Australian forest fires stayed for a couple of days, but news on the Amazon is 1 day after the other, 1 day after the other. So this is a mission that all of us have to be involved in, is to do away with this misleading information. I'm totally in agreement, and I think the theme of Brazilian internal politics is related to all of this. And so you are absolutely right. You know, you have to do your homework and work on the domestic issues and then explain. And this has to be in a way that is congruent and permanent. It should be an explanation-related campaign. That's what you have to do. And we know this, but we have these mega numbers. 86% of the Amazon preserved, or 73% of the Brazilian territory is preserved, the total territory. But this in Europe is is either hidden, it's not informed, it's not publicized, and therefore it does not remain in the minds of the consumers or the politicians and so on. But it's a problem. None of this is announced. None of this is publicized exactly, and the numbers are convincing. Your numbers are convincing. However, nobody uses these numbers. Nobody is familiar with these numbers. Here we see Amazon on fire. This is the kind of news that we get. This is dramatic. And all the positive things that we heard about today can only continue being positive if this is accompanied with permanent explanations. The revolution in the field and the Brazilian agricultural revolution is so attractive, and that it needs a true, real explanation campaign on a permanent basis. And because up to now, very few people know exactly what's going on. I would like to say something. I think we wasted a lot of time in the past with discussions and we sit around a table, the farmers on one side, the environmentalists on the other side, and exchanging accusations. So what is the way? What is the solution? I think we need facts, data, and numbers. And we have this. We have the facts and the numbers and the data. We are able to present all of this. We have to present numbers. Abrapa conducted a huge work in Bahia with focus on crops, and this was checked by NASA, and it was discovered that 35% of the farms in the state of Bahia is preserved. So I bought 100 hectares of land. I paid for 100 hectares, but I only plant my crops on 65 hectares. The other 35% is preserved. So we spend 11 billion reais from our pockets, from our wallets, and to do so. And if we were to plant corn, for example, we would generate revenues of 6.8 billion reais. So this is the point that has to be explained. We try to show this, but it seems that nobody gets the message and nobody wants to listen to us. So we have to check Google, and you will see the facts and the numbers there. But we have to take this information out there in this way and say, look, here are the facts. This is our reality. So, and then this thing, it will be much easier to hold any kind of a conversation. But I think we wasted way too much time trying to explain things that people are not willing to understand. Julio. Yes, so 1 minute. But we have time constraints here. So my proposal is to allocate 1 minute for your final comments. And Julio, count on LIDE to continue working together. I know you have been doing fantastic work. You're an inspiration. The Brazilian cotton is amazing, and we hear free from our partners in Germany too. Yes, so let's work together to the benefit of Brazilian agribusiness. Alexandre, please your final comments, and then we'll make the final comments, the closing comments. But once again, I would like to thank this opportunity of taking part in this discussion. I think it has become very clear for all the comments that were made, the enormity of this sector in our country and the importance of working from end to end. So including the productive basis until all the way down to negotiations. So this is the kind of work has to be focused on. I would like to say that we have this huge potential, and we have to explore this potential better. And the potential has to be fully export. I'm talking about grains and fibers and so on. Thank you. Well, I'm very concerned with the importing of solutions. With the imported solutions, I think in this respect, we are acting rather foolishly because it's not possible for the country, the Brazil, the biggest producer of soybean in the world, one of the biggest producer of cotton, Brazil will become a major exporter of corn. And there's the technology that allows this integration of farming and cattle raising. Brazil has 2 harvests a year. It's not possible for a country of such magnitude. Okay, I know we are at the at the initial point of this chain. But there's there are a lot of other links in this chain, but it's not possible for Brazil, countries such as Brazil, to see what's happening in the world. Brazil has to come up with a solution, and this is what we're looking for. The solution has to come from Brazil to the other countries. Unfortunately, we're being obliged to adopt some solutions that come from abroad. But this is very bad for us because we will lose our leadership position. We know that the addition of value has to come from outside to the inside, but we have to do this we have to do this in Brazil. The solutions have to come from us and not from abroad. Julio, your final comments? I think that we have to change the level of the conversation. We have fantastic programs that have been implemented. We have great numbers to show, especially in terms of preservation and sustainability. And I also think that Europe has to look at us in a different way because 60% of the territory, and so I think this has to be, we have to work together to find a way of building up our image, because here in Brazil, we also want to preserve, and of course, we no longer want to preserve the poverty that exists in many agricultural areas. So we have to deal with this as well. Edna, your final comments?
Agora? Sim.
Um momento, eu me perdi aqui.
Her microphone was on mute.
Sumiu a imagem.
Não, não.
Nós estamos te vendo, Edna. Pode falar.
We can see you, Edna. Okay. I lost the image for a minute there. I'm a Brazilian living in Germany, and we have direct contact with German. We are in the second biggest market in Germany, so we have direct contact with the local population. And according to this contact with and this image that Brazil has developed, and Brazil is seen as a deforesting country. So this technology that we developed to produce packaging based on from sugarcane straw and not from trees, there's a lot of interest on the part of Germany and in Europe for these kinds of products, as Brazil has fantastic biomas. Brazil has the obligation of being the #1 in this kind of technology, and this is why we want to bring our knowledge to Germany and Brazil. This technology has to be produced in Brazil because we hold, 40% of the global sugar is produced by Brazil. So bringing this technology to Brazil is a must, and we have to use these products to produce packaging paper based on sugarcane straw. This, of course, will affect CO2. We have various projects in this respect, all that encompass everything. Sugarcane straw is a product which will branch out into the products. As Nasser said, the technologies that Brazil doesn't need technology. We have everything that we need in Brazil. So this is my point of view. Thank you, Edna. André, you have the mic. Thank you, Evandro. Well, I'm not going to extend myself too much, but there are some points that were very interesting, which will need more attention. What was mentioned of saying instead of being the breadbasket or the supermarket of the world, so we have to aggregate, add more value. This is an issue which even when I was in the farming business, this was already something being highlighted. Brazil exports coffee, is the #1 exporter of coffee, but but the situation now is the same thing as 100 years ago. Brazil exports grain, and that's it. A couple of years ago, Mr. Nestle came up, put his brain to work, and launched those coffee capsules. So, the guy Brazil sells something for 10, and someone from abroad sells what Brazil produced for 10, or sells it for 200, because it adds value. The other André Nasser said, mentioned adding value. I think this is something that is missing in Brazil. We have to aggregate more value to generate wealth and so on. In this productive chain in Brazil, we're cultivating, and this is what we've been doing for 100 years. We're selling commodities. That's what we're doing. And the know-how exists. It's there. Brazil has the know-how, but it's just not taken advantage of. And the last comment, which was mentioned by someone, you talked about the European policies. There's a lot of financial weight. In the last round, we talked about the European aid. The biggest part of the European budget goes to farmers, to subsidize farmers. And this is led by France, for example, all these heavy subsidies for farming. So we have to, show our faces much more. We have to use a cannon and not just a little pistol to sell the facts, to show the facts, the real facts, and the positive facts about Brazil, and not just stay there being hesitant and very humble and so on, and being accused of not doing our homework properly. So this will demand a huge effort of trade associations, of the politicians, of diplomats in European countries, and the European diplomats in Brazil. So this is a set of factors that has to be, that have to put their brains together and work. And we have to look for the support, but we will need all these little grains to really win this battle, or at least have a partial victory in this respect. And to conclude, thank you again for this excellent presentations, so much knowledge that was shared, and to those innovation. Brazil has much to contribute, which is as shown by this wonderful example of the packaging, which is biodisposable, one of the biggest challenge. This is one of the biggest challenges of humanity, the packaging. The other day, I don't remember the numbers, but I don't know how much plastic appears in the world's oceans per minute. These are absurd figures. And talking about cotton also has to, for example, in Germany, we talk about Egyptian cotton as something of very high quality. Why not Brazilian cotton? Is Egyptian cotton so much better than Brazilian cotton? I doubt it. I mean, I don't understand, but I'm sure it's not. So we also have to do this kind of work. We have to sell Brazilian cotton as being good cotton because it needs less water and so on. So we have to play up all these aspects that are related to the environment, which are increasingly being valued. So these are some of the conclusions. But I think we have to, as Dr. Hildegard said, we have to insist on communication, 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 and sell the positive context that Brazil has, the positive content that Brazil has in terms of animal protein, grains, biofuels, and reforestation that we mentioned 2 days ago. Once again, thank you very much. And I hope that this will be the first or the beginning of a chain to build up a more solid future, especially for Brazil and for European consumers, German consumers as well. Yes, exactly. So thank you, everybody, and see you next time. Thank you. Thank you.